Thanks for being willing to hop on here and talk a little bit about your journey and your testimony. And it definitely there's some vulnerability to be open to share. So thank you for being willing to share.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You betcha. Yepper. Well, I thought we can just get into it. Maybe if you wanted to share a little bit on like maybe growing up, how it was growing up. Did you grow up in a godly home, or how was it growing
Yeah,
up?
man. Absolutely. Yeah, so growing up, man, I grew up in a very Christian household, but the devil was after me since day one, and he was after not just me but my whole family, and so
Uh-huh.
um at the age of 3, I accidentally killed my older sister, who was my parents' firstborn. And so, that's like one of the first memories I have as a child. And so
Uh-huh.
I was just instantly immersed in darkness, and I had all sorts of bizarre memories from being a child, and it was nothing to do with my parents, like they were great people and they kept me in church the whole time. Um, a little while later on as a child, I ended up getting essayed by a neighborhood kid, and
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
and so from the, I was so dark as a child, and so I'm so grateful to be where I'm at today. But you know,
Amen.
by the age
Amen.
of 8, I was already I was I tried to hire a hitman with my chore money to take me out. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
from an early age, man, things were just dark, dark, dark in my life, and
Sure.
and so that led to me, I was always seeking attention that no one could fill, right? Because I was searching to fill that,
Sure.
as people say, that God-sized hole in my heart, but I was trying
Right
to
on.
I was trying to fix it by, I did all sorts of things from, self-mutilation to, I tried to be a rock star, then I tried to be a rapper. I did everything you could think of to garner some attention. And actually, whenever I was, let's see, probably like 6th grade, so like it was, I think this is for everybody, man, but like for me, I was so susceptible to media, right? Media really changed who I was at my core, So because of the
Uh-huh.
because of the sexual assault, like I had started experimenting. I was hypersexual from a very early age, and I remember, I was hooking up with men and women, and I remember seeing a show called The Real World Austin, and they had a very flamboyant character on there, and I just remember I was like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to act, to be
Sure.
accepted. And
Sure.
so I took that on, right? And then
Sure.
I saw one of those wicked high school party movies,
Uh-huh.
kind of like it was called Van Wilder, but it's just one of those very inappropriate high school
On a
movies. And like,
dark.
yeah, and where it was supposed to be a comedy, like I sat there and took it as I watched that movie like I was reading Proverbs. I thought it was wisdom for life,
Right on. Right
and
on.
so it led me, that
Wow.
that made things even worse because I thought that I was supposed to genuinely party every day, and that was the meaning to life, was to be like
Wow.
Ryan Reynolds in this fictitious movie,
Uh-huh.
and
Wow.
so by the age, I mean, I started doing drugs really young, but by the time I was 18, I was a full-blown dealer for on and off for almost a decade plus after I turned 18. And yeah, man, it just got, especially once I got out of my parents' house, it got way worse, and so
Sure.
uh yeah, man, so it was nuts. I mean, it led to me getting arrested multiple times, led to me going to jail. I mean, I've, unfortunately been intimate with, I mean, hundreds of men and women by the age of 28, and it was dark on the journey to doing that too. I ended up having a kid who, because of my situation, I wasn't. it wasn't even smart for me to be around him, right? Me dealing all these stuff.
Sure.
So he wasn't with me for a long time. And yeah, man, sorry, I kind of sped through 30 years right there really fast. If you want me
No,
to go
that's
back and touch on any area, you just let me know.
okay. Well, I definitely, yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing. I mean, wow, that's definitely, yeah, being vulnerable to share about your past because I'm sure there's a lot of hurts and a lot of regrets that you have, but ultimately, who you are today, like, wow, isn't that amazing? Like, you can leave all the past behind and focus on Jesus, on who you are today.
Absolutely. And I just want to take this moment to say, man, I do have obviously like there is some regrets, man, but Jesus Christ, whenever I took him seriously, it
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if he has blessed me to be a beacon of light in this regard, but there's so much shame around every topic I just mentioned. Like you said, I mean, it's just darkness, and there was tons of shame there for years. I wore my shame like a badge of honor in a weird sense, and
Sure. Sure.
the moment that I not necessarily when I got saved, but I ended up getting seeking deliverance after I had been saved for a while, um and between that and just spending the time breaking down strongholds and which was a very very vigorous process, but over the course of really the past 4 years, man, like I don't have any shame anymore, man. Jesus is so amazing, and it's
Amen.
yeah,
Amen.
that's the reason I'm here, able to talk to you about things that
Amen.
I kept wrapped in
Amen.
secrecy for years, man. And so Jesus is just
Sure.
so amazing, man. So amazing.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So at what point, like in your dark, yeah, in your darkest moment, like at what point did you realize that you had to start seeking the Lord? And like how did that all look like?
Man, so I had a couple stints of sobriety, um and since I was a kid, honestly, I mean the devil had a calling on my life, but Jesus had a calling on my life too. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
and, and I always knew that I was meant to preach the word. Luckily for me, I was into some very uh I was raised in some strong churches that believed in like the gifts of the spirit. So like for me, and
Awesome.
there was a really rebellious period where I was trying to like convince everybody I was an atheist, but that really circles back to the attention thing, right? I was one of the worst atheists known to man. I think it lasted like a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was just more to make my parents cringe. That used to be my favorite thing in the world was for my parents to go, so you know, but uh, but yeah, so I mean, there was just no denying God, even when I was an atheist. Like I knew what the truth was, and so when actually as I got older, I was the weirdest drug dealer of all time, right? Because people would come over and they'd buy drugs from me, and then I'd preach God to them, and
Oh,
yeah,
right on.
I'd be like, hey, please buy these drugs. Meanwhile, would you like some prayer? And some people were just like, what? Like, yes,
Who is this
so
guy?
yeah, and like and the drugs had me so twisted, man, that my mind state honestly was like, okay, well, I'm for sure going to hell, but if maybe I can save some people on the way. And I don't know if I thought that would be good luck charms or what, but I just always knew
Right.
that like maybe even if I'm going to hell, I can still do some good while I'm on. And so that's how twisted the devil had me, because it doesn't have to be either or. I could save people and still go to heaven, like without the drugs,
Yes.
but I just
Amen.
I felt so far gone, man. And I'm sure a lot of drug addicts have this testimony, but I did not feel like I was going to be able to be reeled out of that pond.
Sure. Wow. But only by the grace of God. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's so amazing. Like all the things that you struggle with, like the moment that you committed your life to God, like He was willing to take that all. Like if you would have tried to do it on your own or whatever, but it was through your surrender that God was able to do that. I mean, yeah, that's so amazing.
Absolutely, man. And I got the pleasure of going to that the V1's Men Conference this past weekend out in Indiana,
Uh,
and
yes,
um
yes.
bro, it was amazing. And Mike Signorelli dropped a message about Joshua 5 actually, right? And so what happens in Joshua 5 is they take they take some I don't remember it all. I'm not a Bible scholar, but but you know they take knives and they circumcise themselves, and then they rest at this place Gilgal, and then God presents to them that they're finally on holy ground, you know, and so anyways, throughout that time, the way my Pastor Signorelli was breaking it down was that they had to do something radical to set themselves apart to say like, hey, we're gonna go through this to show that we are like with God, you know, and
Yes.
they, then until they were healed, they got to rest at Gilgal, you know, and so when I heard that, it was just such a reflection of my own testimony, right? Because when I came up here, well, so I got the opportunity to get clean and I got the opportunity to get reunited with my son and all that. And
Awesome.
so I
Awesome.
had to move from Austin, Texas to Michigan, right? And at first, my parents who live up here, they were not really about it because they knew the life I was in. I've always been very open and honest. And but you know, I chose to sacrifice, man. I left all drugs behind.
Wow.
I left all like, I was like living with escorts and stuff at the time. So like I left all, you know, sensual paraphernalia back there. Just everything bad, every basically false idol in my life. I left in Texas and I moved up here. I did not go to detox or rehab. Now, if you are in this situation, I highly recommend those options. They are great. I'm just telling you the path I went, you know, but you know, I got up here, I fought the detox like a man, and I have to say that you know, God the I don't even remember the detox, man. Like it maybe it was bad. I don't know, you know, but
Wow.
God protected me from that, right? And so when I heard that,
Yes.
you know, that they did
Amen.
this to set themselves apart, and then they got to rest at Gilgal until they were completely healed, right? Um,
Yes.
it just made so much sense to me, right? Because I did that huge sacrifice. I set myself apart and said, "Hey, I'm with God," and I didn't even know what that looked like. You know, like honestly, I didn't even come
Sure.
up here with the intent of going to church or whatever, but I did. You know, and I just got up here, man, and it was like nothing ever happened. Now I go to a lot of support groups and stuff like that. You know, just to kind of offer my experience and you know talk about Jesus and stuff, and a lot of them will say like, "Oh, you're so brave because of what you did," but I mean, God just honored my sacrifice. It wasn't like
Wow.
I did anything, you know, and so
Wow.
I feel so blessed in that regard, man. God is just
Yes.
truly amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. God working through your obedience. Like, that's amazing. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So I thought maybe if you also wanted to share a little bit about your deliverance, you shared that with me. You had shared that you got delivered at a Mike Cinderelli conference, I believe.
Yeah, man. That was so when I first moved up to Michigan, right? I kind of I guess 4 years ago, 2020. And so I know that one thing that I had always said whenever I was you know, still like dealing and stuff was I was like, um, you know, I was like, well, if I get back into Christianity, I'm not gonna be swayed or knocked down by denomination, right? And so I wasn't
Yes.
I was never opposed to going to church or whatever, but I just wanted to make sure that like what they were saying I agreed with because we have the book to check, right? You know what I mean? Like you can hear a
Uh-huh.
message, but we all have the book to go and check ourselves, you know, and so
That's right.
uh,
That's right.
and so when I got up here, you know, like I was like, okay, like this pastor that we're going to see at my parents' church, he's cool, you know what I mean? But I want to be checking into it, you know, and these, you know, and so I don't even know how. I think it started with like Isaiah Saldivar is who I first found, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing, you
Uh-huh.
know. So
Yeah. Yeah, he's
yeah,
an
and
awesome. I
so
watch his videos.
yeah, and so it was through it. I think it was even through Isaiah has a deliverance map, right? And so I had
Yes.
I had looked it up and I was like, like I when I got up here, right, and the reason I knew that it was that I was dealing with something a little bit stronger, which was demonic, was because out of nowhere I developed Tourette's. And
Okay.
I had wicked PTSD, and but the Tourette thing was weird to me, right? So like say like we're doing this interview right now and you turn your head, then my body would decide to go like, but if you were looking at me, nothing
Wow.
would happen. And so I'm like,
Wow.
what? I was like, what is this that is afraid to show its ugly face in front of everybody else? It's torturing me all day, but I tell people about it and they don't even believe me because they don't see it. And so
They don't see it.
I'm like, this is
What?
not real. This is demonic at its core. And so, um,
Uh,
anyways, I look up the Deliverance map, and this is, man, I have to tell you, especially like maybe it would be different if I would have had any Christian friends at this time, but like I've hooked up with strangers on the internet before, and that's kind of scary. But when you're looking up people to get delivered from, like for demons, like that was super scary, like it was like, and
yeah.
that's how I could tell like whatever was inside of me was like, like screeching and crying the whole time. They did not want to leave, and so.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Mhm.
so I found a couple people uh like all across Michigan, kind of like into Indiana, and like I'd be setting up these secret meetings that I'd tell nobody about. But then like I messaged some of them and like, I'm not trying to be a hater or nothing like that, but they could barely type. So I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I trust them. 'Cause I just imagine getting lured into somebody's weird basement and then it just being
Yeah,
like, we got you,
yeah,
so
exactly. Exactly.
uh
Mhm.
anyways, I talked to a couple people and then I found this girl that was willing to do it and she was like 45 minutes from me. And I was like, man, that's amazing. Like you're the closest.
Yeah.
You seem super cool. Anyways, when we started talking, turns out she's in the same town as me. The little map was placing her in a different location. And so I was like, whoa, this is absolutely like meant to be. And so
Uh-huh.
I met her and she's awesome, but things did end up going like in a just did not work out.
Sure. Sure.
Uh but um she found out that I was a fan of Mike Signorelli and all those guys, and she
Uh-huh.
told she told me, she said, hey, Mike Signorelli's gonna be in town, and he's coming to like a local church near us. And
Uh-huh.
little did I know that was his actual church. It was actually V1. I knew nothing
Oh,
about V1 at the
awesome.
time.
Awesome.
And so it turns out I live 45 minutes away. So I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was like,
That's
man,
awesome.
I was like, I'm going down there, and so on my way down there, and at this time I was still, when I first got up here, I was still smoking cigarettes and still smoking a lot of weed, all the time. And so I had just bought like a new sack, and I'm on my way down there and I'm actually fighting the urge to smoke on the way to church so I don't smell up the church, and anyways, I'm listening to I feel like I got deliverance before I even got there.
Wow.
But 'cause
Yeah.
I was listening to one of his sermons and anyways, I just had this crazy image. It was like, you know, um, basically like some image of like your son's gonna follow in your footsteps if you don't throw this weed
Wow.
at your car. And so I was like, gone, like
Yeah,
no
right.
question. I had just bought it, hadn't even opened it. And even I got back and like some of my people were like, bro, you should have brought it back. We could have sold it. Like, and I was like, when God
It's
speaks to you, you do not hesitate, right?
that
Like that
is
is that
right.
is that is the time to jump. And so
Yes.
um anyways, so then I get down there, right? And Indiana's on a different sorry, you're getting the whole story now, man. But
No, you're good. You're good.
uh
Yeah, absolutely.
um Indiana's an hour behind us.
Okay.
It still trips me out when I always mess it up anytime I go to an event there. But I think I'm like showing up and I'm like barely gonna make it. Well, I showed up and I'm like I'm like an hour or two early, and so at this point
Gotcha.
they're in some movie theater, and I show up, and like the whole staff is in the little front lobby, and they let me in, and all of a sudden I'm standing with all these staff members, and Mike Signorelli's leading a meeting like about how he wants church to operate that day, right? And so I'm like,
Wow. That's crazy.
me not knowing it's his church, I'm like, he doesn't even know I'm not a staff member. Like, yes, he knew very well I was not a staff member. I don't know how I got in that meeting, but yeah,
Wow.
anyways, man, the message whenever we went into it was so powerful. I don't even think he got through his message, man, because it was like before the worship band even got off stage, people were already there was only like 20 people there too, maybe 30,
Okay.
but before the worship even let out, some girl was like, ah, and so he got off the stage, and so it was he ended up doing two service. The service was so strong, he's like, hey, y'all just stay in here, I'm gonna go greet the next service, but he's like, we'll just join services and act like nothing happened. So I ended up staying
Wow.
there for like 6 hours until I actually had to leave because of things I had going on.
That's
And
amazing. That's
yeah, and so
amazing.
while we're there, man, some girl really gets like set free. Like
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
she's like puking, screaming, blah blah blah. Then I was like walking around the crowd, and I didn't want to be a creeper. I'm not trying to like be up on him, but like every person he'd go to, I'd go and stand about 5, 10 feet back and pray for them as well. But I wasn't trying to be
Okay.
like up in the mix, but I was just like in my heart and in my mind, I was like, all right, don't be selfish. This isn't about you. Let's just pray these other people get free, and so that's what I was doing. And about halfway through it, first off, some lady, she like fell right at my feet, and it was like, and then like I could see her eyes, and like there was like this crazy spinning light in her eyes, and I'm like looking around, and there's no light that could have been causing it, and she had just so much joy. And then when she kind of came to, she was like a totally different person in the face, and I was like,
Wow.
wow, like I was just blown away. And so, anyways, I to this day don't know if what he said to me, right? Because I was so like but like when he like locked eyes with me, and he said basically like, chill, bro, I'm gonna get to you next, right? But like something in my spirit, it like downloaded, and it was like, don't worry, like yours isn't gonna be like that dramatic, or whatever he said. I don't even know. And so like at the time, every morning I woke up and every night I went to bed, I was reading 45 different Bible verses that I was trying to like commit to memory. And anyways, he came up and started praying over me, and he said three of my favorite of those 45. And so like,
Wow.
yeah, I know. I'm a
Wow.
numbers guy.
That's
I'm
amazing.
about the data, and so like
Right. Right.
so you hit one, okay, there's a high possibility that could happen. You hit two, but then the third one, I was like, it just broke me, And he actually
Wow.
he told me a long time ago, like, hey, you need to be on YouTube and stuff like that. And he said, you're supposed to. He prophesied that God was giving me a new identity, and
Wow.
just a bunch of other stuff. And so, um, and everything he said has came to pass, and like, uh,
Wow.
yeah, even the YouTube thing, he never said like, "Hey, you're going to be a star" or anything like that. He just said you need to be on there. So like, everything he said has came to pass, and
Wow. That's
it
amazing.
was yeah, it was so amazing, bro. And I didn't leave there like feeling. Well, I did. I left there feeling like the whole day in general was just like was amazing. But from that day, man, like I have in the past, I guess that was three years ago. In the past 3 years, I've only been like sexually tempted like for like any like homosexual thing like 3 times, man. But it's not even something that comes through me. So that for someone like me, like the way I describe it to people, right, is he took what I would consider cement blocks on my feet. God did.
Yes. Yeah.
Jesus took what was cement blocks and turned it into
Amen.
Velcro, right? Something
Wow.
something I
Wow.
struggled with my whole life that I thought would always just be a core part of me, right? Like that, I would never be able to get rid of this side of me. And like I said, Jesus just took it and treated it like Velcro. And it was just gone. And I was like, like didn't even know what to do with myself, So I was like, it's amazing, man.
Right on, right on. Yes, that's definitely amazing. And talking on the subject of deliverance, like some Christians say that like we don't need deliverance if we're a believer or whatever. But I feel like there's definitely like, yeah, we if we don't ask for deliverance, if we don't ask to denounce things, like there can still be stuff, like there can still be hidden things.
Right. Absolutely. And so I commonly have this conversation with people, and a lot of people like, and I've had to like kind of balance myself out a little bit because when that
Sure.
did happen, I leaned so heavy on deliver, and I still do, but it was just like I was like everything's a demon, so uh,
Right
which is not
on.
the truth, which is not the truth, but
No, no.
I do find that so many Christians, and a lot of people they struggle with the whole idea of deliverance. And my
Yes.
my thing about it is, man, is like when you read the scriptures, and if you're not willing to like, if you don't think that that's how life is actually supposed to be, like with practicing the gifts, with deliverance, with praying for healing, if you don't think that's how your Christian walk's supposed to be, you're like a gangster rapper that's never actually lived the life they're talking about, right? Because you're too afraid to.
Wow.
You know,
Yes.
and so that's how I feel when it comes to that too. And another thing that I see a lot of times, because I got just as much, if not more, from spending the time breaking down strongholds, right? Like people say crucify your flesh daily, which it is an absolute must, but you got to go to war with that sucker, man. That
Yeah.
he's not playing any games. You know what I mean? Like, and speaking of, I'm preaching to
Right
myself right
on.
now because I need to go to war with my pantry right now, man. I've been snacking too much, but anyways, um like breaking down strongholds, which takes a lot of time. I know a lot of people that they just kind of they accept Jesus. I heard this the other day and I thought it was amazing. They accept Jesus as their savior, but they skip the Lord part. They skip the fact that there's
Yes.
lordship, right? And so like when we
Yes.
read in the text and it says that we're to follow his commands and supposed to walk in his steps, that's where it becomes our flesh's responsibility to actually make an attempt to be better, right? And like so I know
Amen.
a lot of people that think that they can just sit around with whatever issue they got and that God's going to come and take it, and he will. And I mean, like even like for me, that's um but even with the deliverance thing, I still had to go out and reach for that, right? I still had to,
Yes.
and like I was saying in
Absolutely.
our messages, like, like I went with the faith of the woman that touched the robe. And that's why I
Mhm.
like that story so much, right? Because I didn't
Right
know if
on.
anything was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, and all the pastors I've seen on TV doing, sometimes that stuff looks pretty corny to me. You know what I mean? So I was like, that might not
Yeah,
be real, but
sure.
so that's what I see within it does bother me, man. Like ever since, like even in my my walk with Christ recently in the past couple years, you bring up deliverance and all of a sudden they think people that you've known for years think that you're crazy in this regard. And
Right.
they're in the church. And
Amen.
I'm like, my thing to them is like, well, you don't think I'm crazy the other 99% of my life, but this 1%, you
One
just think
thing.
that I've flown the cuckoo's nest, and it's just like,
Right.
why would I do that? Why would I lie to you like that? And so, yeah, man, deliverance, it's a weird one, man. It's a weird day and age we live in with scripture, man. Like even as I learn more and more, I mean, there's so many people that are on polar opposite sides of each other on the fence about a lot of these things, and I've had people try to
Uh-huh.
tell me that it's just symbolic, and I'm like, why? Like
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
would it just be symbolic? But
Yeah, I
anyways.
don't know. Yeah, I feel like some people are maybe trying to defend sin. Maybe if they're, yeah, like they're trying to defend their sinful life. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, we can get free from that. Like, I mean, we don't, Satan might tempt us, but we don't have to give in. Like, yeah, we can be set free.
Absolutely.
So, what would you like? Do you have any tips or anything for if there's anyone that like is struggling with anything that you mentioned, like in your past, maybe they're saying like this is what they are living in right now. Like, do you have any, yeah, any advice or any encouragement for anyone like that?
Man, so first off, the topic of identity is really important to me, right? Like we do not
Yeah, yeah,
we do not realize how much, like, and even if you haven't taken my exact journey, we do not realize how much we've sold our identity, right, through things. And
that's true.
like
That's true.
I, I mean, how many of us, right? And I'm speaking to everybody right now. How many people have ever had a moment in their life where they say, "Oh, I was just like that person in that movie just now," or I said something like they would have said, right? And like, or like, even for me, what was that movie? You ever see that movie Be Cool with John Travolta? Anyways,
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure I have, but yeah.
it's not important, but he plays this like slicked out Hollywood producer named Richie Palmer, and like, and no matter like,
Uh-huh.
I mean, no matter if you're trying to like shoot Palmer in the face or whatever, he like, he'll just like slap the gun out your hand and tell you to be cool, and he's just like slick all the time. Like nothing's ever stressing this guy out. There's never a time where he like loses his composure. Man, like all the time I would be trying to handle things like I was this guy and he's not even a real character. You know what I mean? Like there was times I was in dangerous situations and I'm like trying to be cool, like I could have got myself killed, so but I
Mhm.
think for men and women, I think that happens so often, and like even um the way I used to talk and stuff like that, man, like I would say like lines from a song like at the right opportune moment, and then I'd be like, look at how wise I sound, but it's like
Mhm.
I just quoted wisdom from some rapper or rock star who's more broken than I am. So
Yeah.
that was a big revelation for me, right? I used to be so deep into music and I stopped listening. And I'm not hating on anybody that listens to music. This was my personal conviction, um but I realized one day I'm like, man, I know more rap verses from my favorite artists than I do verses of the Bible. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
and like
Sure.
even to this day, I've been studying the Bible for 4 years, and I have trouble remembering what I read, but I don't have trouble remembering somebody's full discography that they released it or that they
Sure.
released. And so I think that we're so much more influenced, man. And so yeah, identity is really, really important to me, man. And I
Amen.
think that we have that a lot of that robbed. And so when it comes to like um even my drug addiction, man, like a big thing to me was like I was just like, oh, I'm too far gone in these streets, like no one
Sure.
could ever reach me, and that's
Sure.
the it's just that's what the devil wants you to believe, right? He wants you to
Amen.
believe that nothing could ever be better, and
That's right.
like my family, like although they've always been cool with me, like they were smart enough to know when to cut off helping me, right? Because like,
Sure.
I wasn't changing or anything. And so, like I definitely thought like, I had blown the chance to be with my son, I thought that, like I would never have a home. I would never have a real job because of my record. Just all these things, man. And I just like sitting from a high place now, I just want to tell anybody that's down in that life, like it's not true, man, like at all. Like I
That's
do the radical sacrifice.
amen.
I have to side note here, right? So whenever I was selling dope and all that stuff, if God ever spoke to me to throw something away, even if I knew that I was on my way to pick up more or I knew that I was gonna end up back in it, I never once turned down that call. I got to a point and
Wow.
it would piss all my girlfriends off. I would throw cigarettes, I'd throw meth, I'd throw whatever out the window. It didn't really matter because I knew that God didn't talk to me that often at that point, you know? And so when God did speak, right, it's important to listen, make those radical
Yeah.
sacrifices, and God will it will eventually amount to something, right? And so here, I
Wow.
mean, I sit before you 4 years later, man. I have a beautiful fiance. I have a house that I own. I'm a supervisor of a large facility. You know, like
Wow.
my I hang out with my son all the time. He thinks I'm great. You know what I mean? God
Wow.
is willing to restore the most. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you have no idea what's waiting for you on the other side of your
Wow.
yes. And just like David was saying earlier, your obedience really, I mean, it will take you so far. And like, and even now, like, I mean, just as most other stubborn headed people, like when we're all human, you know, like there's areas where like I drag out being obedient
Sure.
and then the moment I am, it's like boom, man, you should like it's like and then you think to yourself, why wasn't I here the whole time? You know, and it's like
Sure.
even though I have this new identity, it's always changing the more and more obedient I am, you know, and so if you're out there, you know, especially like living in sexual sin like I was like homosexuality. I was also into like cross dressing and stuff like that. Like and you the way that they preach it, right? It's not like the way that they show it on TV. It's not just you're not just you're not just sinning in a certain area. It's not like you're just experimenting over here, and you know like and
Wow. Wow.
the way that they show it is like no, this is who you have to be 24/7 as to where like
Wow.
no
Wow.
heterosexual couple lives their life like that. You know, like no heterosexual couple
Right.
is like, this is who I have to be. I have to be straight all the time, and you have to know how
Right.
straight I am. You know, like they want it to be your identity where you wear it. And even though
Wow.
I was open, it was still and everybody knew it was still just kind of like don't ask, don't tell in my life.
Sure.
But it was like once you know like people would find out and then it would just it I did face a lot of like ridicule and blah 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 but like I'm 6'4", like not too many people are talking that to my face, you know what I mean? So but I just you don't think you're going to get that identity back, you know. And so for me too, like I never thought that like I'd be viewed or that I would be like a super masculine person, you know, and like I am totally that now. Like God can do
Uh-huh.
things you never thought were possible if you give him
Amen.
the opportunity, you know,
Amen.
and also for anybody that's getting into the word that is struggling with these identity things, I want to share this revelation I had with you the other day because I know when I first came to Christianity, well, I've always been, but the past 4 years, every once in a while I'll be like, oh, I'm going through this thing, like I'm having anxiety. Let me Google a Bible verse, you know, and it'll be like 50 Bible verses on anxiety, and then you read them, and for me personally, a
Mhm.
lot of times I'd be like that doesn't have anything to do with anxiety. But what I found was that I'm cherry picking verses, right? Instead of cherry picking stories, right? So
Mhm.
I encourage anybody that's going through anything, and if you're going through the word, man, look up stories that have to do with what you're doing, not just one sentence, man. Read about God gave us so many awesome characters and examples
Yes.
to follow and be led by. And so I just
Yes.
encourage you, man, to get into your word and find stories that you relate to, right? Like
Yes.
Samuel, David, and the Saul thing, man. That was such a. I mean, for me, I was like reading that. I was like, wow, I feel like a king after reading this. You know, that
Right
was
on.
awesome.
Right on. And when you read those stories, like you realize those men, the all these mighty men that God was able to use, like they also had a past. Like they weren't always perfect. Like they had,
Oh yeah.
yeah, maybe they struggled with sin as well. Like David, he had an affair and all kinds of things. And so yeah, it's like God was still able to use those people.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing, and this is just funny, it's not really on track, but David, he lies, and I think it's like 80 something priests have to die because of that. And so
Yeah.
now every time I like commit even a little sin, I'm like, did 85 priests just die because of me? It's like
That's a
you don't
good
know,
point. That's a
but
good point.
bro, it's kept me walking on eggshells for like, and not in a bad way, in a good way, for a long time now.
Mm, sure, you betcha. Yeah, thanks so much for everything you've been sharing, man. It's just amazing. Yeah, just to get a little bit of your story, and yeah, it's just amazing. So I didn't know if like what you would say like if an unbeliever would walk up to you and like ask, why do you believe in God? Like what would you say to them?
Oh man, non-believers are the easiest sell of all time, right? Um, I love talking to non-believers. I've been working on going out and evangelizing a little bit more. I'm
Awesome,
you
awesome.
know it is a little tricky, like not tricky, but like in my flesh, it's hard to get around some of that. But at my
Yeah,
job,
yeah.
and I've been like this the whole time I've been there, but especially now that I'm supervisor, like I'm not really restricted. I don't have anywhere to be at a certain time. So like there's like I mean at any given time there's you know like 100 to 200 people in the building. So like I'll walk up to people and I'll just say, "Hey, yo, when's the last time you talked to Jesus?" And if
Oh
they're
wow,
if they're not
awesome.
if they're not with Jesus, I mean they're going to tell me that, like instantly,
Uh-huh.
right? And
That's right.
but it just opens up the door for conversation, and the
Yes.
cool thing about testimony, right, is you can have your own beliefs. You can't deny my lived experience.
That's
Like
right. That's
so
right.
so no one's ever, if you're ever telling somebody about Jesus, no one's ever going to say it didn't happen like that. I was there in your shoes. No one's ever going to come back with that. And
That's right.
so testimony is so awesome, and honestly, with non-Christians, like they might have a problem with the church, but when you tell them about your walk, you know what I mean, and then too, like I mean, people know that I'm like I just if you can always deflect back to something that God's got going on, like, or if you can always
Yeah.
deflect, you don't have to be like a lot of these people. I just plant the little seed, right? And then after that, like it's a joke now. They know I'm known as preacher man, but
Oh yeah.
like if I always deflect back to God, eventually things become interesting, and so like some of the people that I've led to Christ over the past 4 years, man, were some of the most unlikely candidates, like
Wow.
um, yeah,
Oh,
like
that's amazing.
one of my best friends, he's the most cantankerous old man you've ever met. And he's like in his 60s, and just like, just everything is just he's came a long way, so I'm super proud of him. But for the longest time, like they put me with this guy when I first started at this job because of how bad he was. He was scaring off everybody they put back there with him because they'd be like, he's too cranky. And and I was like, when I got back there, I mean, little did he know I had the Holy Spirit, right? So like I go
Yeah,
back there,
amen.
and
Amen.
and I'm just like, hey, God, you did not put me here to like run away,
That's
and I
right.
wasn't even planning on
Wow.
converting him. I just thought that, I was like, God, you have me back here for some reason, and I'm not gonna let this man outlast me. And then before
Wow.
I have him coming to church with me, and he reads his
Wow.
Bible every day and stuff. And then my other
Yes.
my other like great friend who actually has moved up here, like I'm a pretty smart guy, but like when you get around people, like she's like like a psychology, this, that, going to college, super smart. So for like the whole time of our friendship, she just like would listen to me as like, and she's probably gonna watch this. So I mean this in all love. But she would like listen to me like I was some sort of case study, like for, like she'd just be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Go Jesus," like, but she never believed in it, So like,
Right.
and just at the very right time, right, the Holy Spirit allowed me to step in and help, and it wasn't instantly. I mean, that was 13 years later, and so uh,
Oh.
just the things God's done, man, and like the people He's able to reach, but the main point, if you're trying to reach a non-believer, man, is to first off let them know where you're at, you know, and however you choose to do that, you know, like, but just I just recommend people are so scared of offending and crossing the wrong line, but
Right.
just asking somebody is the best
Yeah.
way to know that they're not into it, right? You know, like,
Wow.
and then
Yeah.
so as soon as you get that barrier broke down about where they're at, right? Well, that's fine. Like y'all don't have to continue that conversation, but you can always circle back your lived experience, you know, and you can always
Yes.
circle back with what God's done in your life. You can also always circle back. I always talk about how I'm like serving in the church, and like then
Uh-huh.
that'll lead to open conversations. They're like, you know, because even the other day, my son had this vision. He wanted to go hand out macaroni to the homeless people, you know, and so like that's an easy conversation to tell people like, hey, my son had this
Hey.
awesome idea. Let's go hand out macaroni and pray for people. And they can't say, no one's gonna say, stop the story. You mentioned
Yeah.
prayer. Stop it right here. Like,
Right.
your son's stupid. No one's gonna say that. So anyways, man, just plant the seed, man, and then always just circle back, right? Like, and the Lord will guide you, right? Like, even the last person that I had not talked to, this old cantankerous man at my job. He's like 6'4" and like 400 pounds, and we became really good friends. But he was like one of the last people I talked to. He scared me. I'm like, this guy could sit on me and that'd be the end. Anyways, just the other day he like came in. I said something about helping out with youth group, and he goes, "Oh, you're one of those church people?" And I was like, "Boom, the door's open." That's all I needed
Right.
to hear.
Right
So we,
on.
we talked about it. He's got these reasons he don't like it, but the door's open now. So
Uh-huh.
like there's no limits, and now it's just a time thing, right? The
Yes.
conversation's gonna come back up because he knows he has a reason to battle with me, right, or whatever you want to call it. But in his spirit, he knows that, like, oh man, this guy's so cool, but that Christian thing, and and so now it's just up to the Holy Spirit, right? And so,
Wow.
yeah, man.
That's amazing. And I love the point that you brought out about people that maybe they've been hurt by the church, like people that were claiming to be Christians that portrayed Jesus very wrongly, like maybe they've been hurt. And so maybe like they don't want to hear it like when you bring it up. But I love the part where you said like when you share your own personal testimony of what God has done in my own life, like it's just amazing. And when you share your own testimony, like that can, yeah, open doors. Like yeah, I love that part.
Yeah, no, I mean it's so true, man. Like I said, no one can deny what you've been through, and
That's
so
right. That's right.
yeah, and
Yes, that's
and so I mean the worst thing they're gonna do is think that you're crazy or something. But in my case, I'm like they probably already thought that, so like we're good
right.
to go there.
Right. Yeah, it can be uncomfortable to talk about your faith, to talk about God and stuff, but God can help you. Like he can help you give you the words to say or whatever, and like don't underestimate the power of a seed. Like maybe it won't go exactly like how you think it would, but
Right.
hey, just like you said, the timing thing. Like it
Yeah.
might not happen that exact time, but they're gonna be thinking about it. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and that's one thing that like, I've never really thought about it like this before, but before coming to God, right? Like there was a lot of people that planted seeds in my life, and so
Yes.
like kind of
Yes.
when I actually came to God and stuff like that, like I feel like a garden was just planted instantly,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's so important, man, that we do that because yeah, people will think, and even like sometimes I wonder who planted a seed that I don't even remember,
That's right.
and they say that when we get to heaven we'll see everybody that
No,
that,
yes.
that we
Yes.
helped out, and so
Then we'll get our
um
reward.
yeah, and so like I still wonder to this day, like if even when I was drug dealing and praying for people, if maybe there was a day the Holy Spirit was like, he's cooking, he's onto something,
That's
like
right.
like, and if I had said something to somebody that I never saw again, that
That's
potentially change.
right.
I mean, you just never really know, and
That's a
so
that's a very good point. Like you don't, yeah, maybe they are a believer today, like through that conversation. Like you don't
right.
know. Just keep at it. Like, yeah, don't give up.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the people that planted seeds in my life that genuinely meant them at the time, but it's like 15, 16 years ago, probably don't even remember who I am, and but they
Sure.
changed they changed a life, and so I think that's it's super important that we do the legwork, and that is why evangelizing, this is the little hump I'm trying to get over, so y'all pray for me, but is like there's no predecessor now. Like with my employees, it's like I kind of get a build up, like I get to know them, or uh I'm at least their boss, like, but
Sure.
strangers in the street, it's just like, it is
Sure.
like
You don't.
there's that little hump I'm trying to get over. I've done it, I've pushed myself to do it, but I'm trying to like
Sure.
be able to get out there more actively. And because out there
Sure.
you get the
Sure.
couple of no's, and then in your spirit you're just like, oh no, and so but no, it's amazing. It's so important to plant seeds, man. You never know who you're gonna touch.
That's right.
Yeah, God is willing to God is willing to get the most unlikely of people.
Yes. 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 If he can do it in my life, like he can do it in someone else's, that's for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say if someone asked you like what's the best part of being a believer? Like what would you tell them?
Oh my gosh, man. The best part in being a believer, man, that's a crazy question, man, because it, it goes so far. Like I could think selfishly, or I could think broadly. So let's start
Sure.
with selfishly, right? So like, man, I was like I mentioned at the very beginning, if you've made it this far, when I was 8, I started contemplating suicide. And that was a daily struggle for me until I got
Wow.
delivered, really. And so
Wow.
I never thought there would
Um,
be a day in my life where I didn't want to end it, right? And so
wow.
I never
Wow.
thought there'd be a day that I wasn't depressed. I never thought there would be a day I didn't hate myself.
Wow.
And all those are not true anymore. Like that alone is amazing. Um uh
Yeah.
Also on a non-selfish level, like now that I tithe, now that I serve, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I don't know where that money goes, bro. You know what I mean? Like, but like for all I know, like they had a backpack giveaway or something, you know what I mean? And I'm the only reason your child just got backpack and school supplies. You know what I mean?
That's
Like that
right.
that's amazing. Like
Yes.
I don't know if like with being a believer, you never know what's around the next corner, right? And like
Yes. Right.
uh uh even like I mean, God is just he is just so faithful and true, and the more that you listen to him, the more
Yes.
that uh, the more that you'll see that, like even
Yes.
even with my house, like I chose to I was getting beat out every time I try to buy a house because we're a highly sought after area, and with housing prices now, it's crazy.
Sure.
Um, and anyways, I was like, bro, I'm never gonna get a house. I'm gonna be stuck living in my parents' basement forever.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and give 10%. I felt like God was telling me to do it. I'm gonna go ahead and give 10% of my entire savings account. Not like,
Wow.
yeah, and I was like, and my cousin was my
Wow.
real estate agent. I gave like it was like $1,200, $1,400 or something like that. And anyways, the biggest thing I ever gave in my life, and I was just like, whatever, I'll never own a house. It was like 4 days later, my cousin hit me up and was like, "Hey, I got this house to hit up," and I had already decided in my heart. I said, I don't have the heart to tell him I'm done looking at houses, but after
Sure.
today, I was like, I'll tell him like, hey, I'm
Wow.
done looking at houses. And anyways,
Wow.
the house he took me to see, I wasn't even blown away with, just because I knew that I wasn't looking to buy a house anymore. And
Sure.
and
Sure.
uh anyways, Turns out they didn't want to put it on the market. I got a house 3 times bigger for less money than anything else on the market. You know what I mean? Uh,
Wow.
like God,
Only
God is
God.
just only God, only God. There's, and so, yeah, man, the best part about being a believer is so hard for me to define, man, because he restored relationships, man. He's repaired bridges, you know,
Wow.
um,
Wow.
he's been there through and through, man.
Yes.
And lately I've been trying to figure out how to I'm trying to turn my praise more towards him all the time, because he's done so much for me, and I just am so undeserving at the end of the day, I don't deserve
Sure.
anything I have, and so I just any way possible I want to focus my attention more and more on him all the time.
Amen. Amen. Man, that's so amazing. Well, man, listen, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to hear your journey, get to know you a little bit better, and thanks so much. Thanks so much for being willing to share and just all the wisdom that you share. Man, it's amazing. So-
Man, not a problem, man. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone's looking for you online, like can you share maybe like how can people find you online? What are a couple of platforms that
Yeah, YouTube is really the only platform I'm on, but it's at the God Pod Godcast in all one word, and it should pull me up. Or you can look up, for some reason people have better success looking up my name, and my name is Cuyler. It's spelled Cuyler, and last name Wing, Wing. And
awesome.
uh and yeah, you can find me on YouTube and I'm on TikTok too, but I don't really post there. But you can still look it up though.
Sure, sure, you betcha. Well, listen, man, hey, it's been amazing talking with you, and yeah, God bless you, brother.
Oh, thank you, man. Y'all have a good one.
You too, brother.